Donald Trump just ordered the U.S. military to prepare for a possible invasion of Nigeria. Now, the way he put it was prepare for possible action. But I've been in the military and I've gotten those kinds of orders. And what that means is prepare for a possible invasion. The reason he says he wants to do this is because of persecution of Christians in Nigeria. That is a problem. In parts of Nigeria, persecution against Christians is severe. But why now? And why invade? Why not just negotiate? Since Donald Trump considers himself such a wonderful negotiator, why not at least try negotiating before proposing an invasion? And although God can use invasion from a hostile power to punish the persecution of Christians, he's done that in the past. There are examples of the Bible where he's done that. The truth is, when you look at the big picture of how Donald Trump has behaved towards Africa and what is happening in Nigeria besides these persecutions, it becomes clear that the real motive behind Donald Trump's desire to invade Africa, and that doesn't mean just Nigeria, it means Africa, his real motive has nothing to do with Nigerian Christians. I'm Pastor Robert. I'm a visiting professor at Nile Theological College, and I'll explain it. I help you think biblically balanced about world events like this one, about doctrinal issues, and about society's issues. So please like this video, share it, subscribe with notifications, tell a friend to tell a friend. Let's get right into it. So what is happening to Christians in Nigeria? It's actually terrible. They are being very seriously persecuted, and it's been in the world press. Christians are being killed in Nigeria, their property taken, churches burned and destroyed, kidnapped, murdered. And it's happening in the rural areas of Nigeria. It's being done by Boko Haram, which is a famously violent Islamic extremist group, and also by Fulani militants, who are also Islamic. Some of the numbers are actually Christians who are being caught up in a rising tide of violence against civilians in parts of Nigeria overall, not particular to them. But still, the persecution against Christians specifically is terrible. The problem is this has been going on for a long time. I mean, it was happening during Donald Trump's first term, and he didn't care about it then, not at all. In fact, let's look at Donald Trump's stated view of Africa and Africans. Now, Trump hates Africans. According to an NBC's news article from Donald Trump's first term, President Donald Trump referred to African countries, Haiti and El Salvador, as shithole nations during a meeting and asked why the U.S. can't have more immigrants from Norway. Excuse my language, but that's the actual words he used. And that is vulgar slang for dung or manure in the U.S. That's what he thinks of African countries and of Africans. In this term, he recently ambushed President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa during an Oval Office visit to the White House that President Ramaphosa was making and falsely accused him of persecuting white people in South Africa, which is a lie because it doesn't happen. In fact, white South Africans have come out in force in social media denying all of that. What is happening in South Africa is selective repatriation of land and other assets that white people stole over a 500-year period, and white people now still own 90% of the assets in South Africa, and so there are measures being taken by the government to ensure a fairer share for black Africans. They are moving to try to reverse some of the damage that has been done by this exploitation over several centuries. And Trump hates that. He's even trying to get South Africa removed from the G20. In addition, Donald Trump is offering white South Africans, Afrikaners, refugee status in the United States. Again, citing non-existent persecution in South Africa. However, the Nigerian Christians who are being persecuted, Donald Trump is offering them nothing. He hasn't offered a single Nigerian refugee status in the United States. In fact, he has revoked refugee status from black people, African diaspora in the United States, and forcibly deported them and imprisoned them. People who have committed no crime and many who are in the country legally. He's also on a warpath against African Americans. He's removed and fired very capable, very qualified African Americans from high positions, from chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head of the Library of Congress, and many others. He has no black administration appointees. And recently, he even removed memorials for black soldiers who helped liberate Europe in World War II. Donald Trump despises Africans. He even despises black people in his own country. So why all these expressions of concern now for Nigerian Christians? Also, as bad as persecution of Christians is in Nigeria, and it is very bad, there are other countries where it is even worse. The UK Parliament House of Commons Library says this in its World Watch List 2025. North Korea, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, and Sudan had the highest rates of reported persecution against Christians. And Sudan is something that strikes me personally, because the academic dean of Nile Theological College, where I teach, was imprisoned and put on death row for being a Christian. And it took a worldwide effort of awareness raising to get him out. He's actually written up a record of his persecution. So that is a very serious situation. In addition, North Korea has been infamous for having large torture camps, huge torture camps for Christians, sometimes having 250,000 people. According to a Time magazine article I read a while back, you can see these camps are so big, you can see them from space. And what they do is that if they find someone is a Christian, they take their entire family, parents, grandparents, children, everyone, and put them in these torture camps and torture them. It's a horrible, awful, demonic situation there. The UK House of Parliament watch list goes on to say this: North Korea has been consistently ranked as having one of the highest rates of persecution since the World Watch List was first conducted in 1983. The number of countries ranked conducting extreme or very high persecution has risen from 23 in 2015 to 60 in 2024. So it's saying here, North Korea has been consistently the top or among the top and worst persecutors for the past 40 years, for longer than 40 years. Why isn't Donald Trump proposing to invade North Korea? There's widespread persecution of Christians also in the rural parts of India and in China, yet Donald Trump is not dreaming of invading them, especially not China. So again, why Nigeria and why now? Well, it turns out that not long ago, Nigeria started banning the export of raw ore from its country. And according to the Nigerian Mineral Exchange, Nigeria is rich in at least 53 valuable minerals. They include antimony ore, which is crucial for alloys and flame retardants; barytes, which is essential for the oil and gas industry for drilling fluid; bauxite, which is used in a wide range of manufacturing; bentonite, which is invaluable in drilling, foundry, and ceramics; columbite, a key source of niobium used in high-strength alloys for aerospace and other advanced industries; copper ore, which is used for pretty much everything in a huge range of applications around the world in many different areas; also gold, uranium, iron ore, and dozens of other valuable ores and substances. And according to Global Policy Watch, the reason that Nigeria's Minister of Resources gave for this export ban is to end the plundering of the continent for raw minerals by incentivizing local processing or refining before exporting and bringing industry to Africa so that our people can be employed. This is a really big deal because what's happened for the past 200 years, actually longer if you include the slave trade, but for the past 200 years, the West, Europe and the United States, have exploited Africa by digging the ores out of African soil, transporting the raw ore to the West, and then doing all the valuable processing in the West. So all Africa has ever gotten paid for is the raw dirt that they've dug out of the ground, and that pays almost nothing. So it has left African countries impoverished and poor. And yes, there's a middle class and rich class in Africa, but much of the land unnecessarily is impoverished and poor. It's caused horrific environmental destruction, and it's given Africa practically nothing for the valuable minerals extracted from it. And the scale of this is absolutely stupendous. Let's take gold, for example. A ton of raw high-quality ore can yield up to, say, half an ounce of gold. It costs about $10 to $30 to process a ton of ore. So say $20 to $60 to process 2 tons of ore to create an ounce of gold. Say an average of about $40. But that ounce of gold sells for $4,000 or euros per ounce. So that is 100 times. So the Western nations and corporations make 100 times as much from the gold that they process as they paid Africans for the raw ore that they dug out of the ground. So they are cheating and exploiting African countries. And what Nigeria decided to do was to ban those exports and create jobs to do more valuable work in Nigeria where the ore is. It's their land. These are their minerals. And to enjoy more of the value from their own minerals. They follow the lead, actually, of Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traore, whose country was badly exploited by France and other Western powers, but particularly France. So he forced these exploitive French powers out of the country and started doing more of the processing and value add and industry within Burkina Faso, employing Africans, African talent, African engineers, and providing more of the value and stopping some of the sheer naked exploitation of his people by France. And the Bible actually condemns that type of exploitation in the first place. In Amos 8:6, it says this. It says, hear ye this, O you that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn and wheat? And when will the Sabbath be gone, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit? That is what France, Europe, the United States, the Western powers have been doing to Africa for over 200 years regarding all these valuable minerals. And the economic exploitation has been stupendous, to the amount of hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars. And the Bible always pushes for fair and just trade, fair and just dealings, fair and honest dealings that benefit everybody. So the United States and Europe ought to be supporting this approach by African countries. Instead, they're opposing it. They're doing the exact opposite of what the Bible requires, as they've been doing all along by exploiting these countries and exploiting these people. And Nigeria is not the only African country doing this, again, according to Global Policy Watch. Namibia and Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe banned exports of unprocessed lithium ore. Namibia followed suits regarding lithium and other rare earth minerals. Ghana, a prohibition on the export of raw bauxite, which is used a lot in manufacturing. And also the prioritization of Ghanaian investors in acquiring Newmont Corporation's Ikem gold mine and Atlantic's Lithium's lithium project. Botswana, they renegotiated its mining rights with De Beers regarding diamonds. The Sahel, it's a group of 7 countries in Africa, including Burkina Faso, that are important sources for gold, uranium, bauxite, manganese, and iron ore. They've banned those raw mineral exports as well. So it's about a dozen countries with more to follow, because the African Union is being influenced by these countries as well. And it's moving away from its historic Western-oriented favoritism for the economies in the African Union to a model closer to what Ibrahim Traore and these dozen other African countries are doing now in appropriating more of the value of African minerals and resources to African countries, their economies, and their people and citizens. In fact, the West has insisted on continuing to treat African countries with such exploitative contempt that a growing number of African countries have been engaging in more treaties and agreements with Russia and China, even though those are decidedly non-democratic countries, because those countries have offered African countries better terms, genuine respect. They're not trying to embarrass prominent world leaders like Donald Trump did to President Cyril Ramaphosa. And they're helping build infrastructure and build the countries up, which the United States and Europe are not doing and haven't done. And again, if the United States and Europe had just obeyed the principles of the Bible to treat people fairly, or when this unfair treatment got pushed back, that they would agree and said, yes, we've been unfair. We should be fairer with you. We should negotiate better terms, the way the Bible commands to treat people fairly and justly and not to exploit the poor. Had the United States and Europe done that, this wouldn't be such a serious economic issue right now. So the consistent indication from Donald Trump's past behavior, from current events in Nigeria, and his overall attitude towards Africans, and his not even thinking about offering Nigerian Christians asylum the way he's doing for white South Africans who don't even declare any kind of Christianity. All of those things point to Donald Trump's true motive not being Nigerian Christians, but wanting to force Africa back into this exploitative, lopsided relationship regarding their strategic minerals. And the threat to invade Nigeria, or an invasion of Nigeria, would also look to be a signal to these other African countries that they need to fall back in line with the European agenda. And this whole motive of trying to return Africa to this oppressive and exploitative European colonialism model is a wicked motive. It's a motive that God will not bless. Now, God can act through wicked nations to punish nations that are oppressing and persecuting his saints. He's done it in the past. The Philistines and the Ammonites. The Assyrians conquered the Philistines, and the Babylonians conquered the Ammonites. But there are two things really to consider even then, if Trump, for some reason, were to invade Nigeria. Number one is Donald Trump's awful track record of failing to keep good promises and of keeping evil promises. He promised to bring prices down in America. They've gone up. He promised to preserve jobs and help the economy. Farmers are losing their homes. And his tariffs, which American companies and American citizens actually pay, are creating a huge burden. He promised to get rid of evil immigrants and criminals, which there really aren't that many. And he's broken that. He's arresting innocent people who've done nothing wrong, hardworking people who are contributing to American society and the economy. He's attacking African Americans in their homes. He's deporting innocent people and throwing them in concentration camps, one of which is called Alligator Alcatraz, and others like that, these detention centers. As far as evil promises, he wanted to be a dictator, and he's acting like one. He's keeping his evil promises, but he's failing to keep his good ones. So if he did go into Nigeria, then the chances of him actually helping Christians there, persecuted Christians there, is very low. He'd more likely, given his track record, he'd more likely try to extort benefits from the government, like the Qatar jet, that huge jet that he accepted from the Kingdom of Qatar, and the way that he's enriched his family through other means, billions of dollars. So he's unlikely to actually do what he's promising for Nigerian Christians. Second, this persecution is mostly happening in rural areas. Rural areas are extremely difficult to control. They're hard to conquer, let alone control. And the U.S. has already failed at least 3 times doing that. One was back in Vietnam. The rural area there actually was a jungle, and the United States got defeated. There was also Afghanistan and Iraq. 20 years of war, and the United States ended up getting chased out and defeated. The same thing would happen in rural Africa, be it Nigeria or other rural countries. Rural areas are very hard to control. So the best thing to do for Christians is to pray for actual change in Donald Trump's heart, that he would accept Jesus Christ as a Savior. He claims that he has, but his actions, his attitudes, especially towards Black people, racial minorities, his attitudes towards Africa, his constant string of false statements, broken promises, all of those things point the exact opposite direction of a true confession and a truly changed heart. Pray that God will remove his heart of stone and give him a heart of flesh. For African Christians, let's pray that God will raise up a leader, ideally in Nigeria, who will handle and protect African Christians from persecution. And if, Lord forbid, that if by some chance that an invasion of Nigeria were to happen, which would be overall a bad thing, pray that it actually does result, even accidentally, in Nigerian Christians being saved from all of this persecution. Do not be eager to support Donald Trump invading Nigeria, because we need to trust the Lord Jesus Christ. We cannot trust Donald Trump. Please like this video, share it, leave a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts. Watch these videos for more Bible information. God bless you, and see you there.